communism, then communism is food. It's like food. That's what Jaramogi said. You can see it in the Hansard. Tomorrow, headline East African Standards. Communism, my food, says Odinga. How Jaramogi and the tag of being a communist. Jaramogi never studied Marxism-Leninism at all. He did not. But when Jaramogi was just being realistic at that time, Kalembe Ndile was an MP for somewhere in Okambani. Omoto Kibwezi. Omoto Masahalia was Masahalia. We used to live together with him. Here he was working at Lutheran near here company. Mutieno. All those were students who Jaramogi sent to study in India. This is long before airlift. So the Indian package was much earlier than the airlift. And the airlift only had about 300 people. But then after that, when Jaramogi traveled to the Eastern European countries, first Jaramogi had gone on to attend a conference in Tokyo, Japan, a World Peace Conference. When he was at that conference in Tokyo, he met with the Chinese delegation. The Chinese delegation invited him to go and visit China, and he accepted. That's how Jaramogi went to the East. When he went to China, they went first to Shanghai. From Shanghai, they went to Peking, those days, now Beijing. And he met with Mao Zedong and Xu Enlai. And they had discussions, and they arranged for him to go to other parts of China to go and see how China were working to develop their country, Chinese. He went to several provinces of China. From there, they arranged for him to go to Moscow. But that time, the Chinese and the Russians had not disagreed. So they're the ones who made arrangement for him to go and meet with Nikita Khrushchev, then the president of the Soviet Union in Moscow. So he went from Peking to Moscow and had discussions with the leadership of the Soviet Union. First, in Beijing, they agreed to support the liberation movement in Kenya. In Moscow also, they agreed to support the liberation movement in Kenya. From Moscow, he flew to London. At Heathrow Airport, the immigration saw the stamp of Peking. They did not mind about Moscow, but Peking, the red China. So he went to China, yes. He was holding a British passport. At that time, everybody was a British subject. And the British citizens were not supposed to go to Red China. So the guy just did not say anything, but noted and I think reported to the immigration. He went into the town. But from there, when he came back to Nairobi and landed at Jomo Kenyatta Airport now, then Embakasi Airport, the passport was impounded. They took away the passport. They did not give any reasons. So there was a headline, Jaramogi's passport impounded. So the matter was raised in the Legico, and there was a long debate over it. The majority of members of parliament at that time were whites, and they were saying how Jaramogi was playing about with fire. One was called Group Captain Briggs. One was Sir Michael Blundell. One is called N.S. Vasi. And all of them are condemning Jaramogi and saying that Jaramogi was playing with what he did not understand. He who rode on the back of the tiger ended inside the stomach of the tiger. So one said, Mr. Odinga should know that men much more intelligent than him have tried and have failed, and he will fail. So when Jaramogi rose to respond, he told the gentlemen who were talking that, look, even me, before I went to China, I was as ignorant as you people about China. But what I saw in China was an eye-opener to me. China is the country with the biggest population in the world. At that time, 540 million people. But in China, I did not see any people walking naked. Everyone was clothed. In China, I did not see people who are unemployed. Everybody was employed. In China, I did not see people hungry. Everybody was eating. China was able to feed 540 million people. We have no beggars in China. So if that is what's communism, then communism is food. It's like food. That's what Jaramogi said. You can see it in the Hansard. Tomorrow, headline East African Standards. Communism, my food, says Odinga. How Jaramogi had the tag of being a communist. Jaramogi never studied Marxism-Leninism at all. He did not. But Jaramogi was just being realistic at that time. Now what indeed he negotiated scholarships with those countries for Kenyans. At that time, it was not easy to get a passport if you are going to study in those countries. So the Kenyans who had moved out and had been denied opportunity to go and study in Rome, and they had gone by foot through Uganda and through South Sudan to Khartoum, negotiated and opened an office in Khartoum, and then went also up to Cairo and opened an office. Jaramogi met them, and through that connection, he opened an office in Cairo, and he was able to meet the Egyptian president, Mr. Nasser. But I wanted to tell you that when his passport was impounded here, he got a passport, international passport from Kwame Nkrumah, president of Ghana. Another one from Gamal Abdel Nasser, president of Egypt. He had 2 international passports. So he went there, and in Cairo they set up an office operated by the late William Odhiambo Kelo, Werambitho, and Abdallah Karungo. Then they opened up another office in London, operated by Otiego Thiel. In London, Nkrumah bought a building called Africa Unity House, which building he dedicated to the liberation struggle on Africa. And all Africans who had a problem in London could go and stay in that building. And he asked Jaramogi to give him somebody to manage that building. Jaramogi gave him a Kenyan who had been a student in London and had not come back, called Otiego Thiel, became the manager of Africa Unity House. So now the Cairo office was the one that was liaising with all these countries: Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania, the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, and China and so on, about scholarships. So Kenyans only needed to get to Cairo. From Cairo, you would now be able to travel to get a scholarship to study for free in all those countries. Through that program, 5,000 Kenyans managed to study in the university. That was Jaramogi's initiative, which has never been recognized or appreciated, because people highlight only the 300 or so people who were taken by airlift and from Embakasi to New York. But there's nothing, it's a drop in the water of the ocean by comparison to many Kenyans who studied through Jaramogi's initiative. First in India, then in those other countries, then in the UK, in the United States. People like Hira Lingweno studied in Harvard. It was sponsored by Jaramogi. Washington Jalango Kumu was